feels like I've been here all before. Radio humming, the world feels right. Every little thing's in tune tonight. Shadows fade, the truth comes through. Fresh start in the morning blue. Hey, now blue sky shining down. Let your feet don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day. Oh, coffee, steam, and a smile breaks free. Simple joys are enough for me. Stones roll out, but I don't mind. Sun's still waiting on the other side. Turn it up, feel the sound. Good vibrations all around. Hey, now blue sky shining down. Lift your feet, don't touch the.
So we
Wake up, sunlight tapping on the door. Feels like I've been here all before. Radio humming, the world feels right. Every little thing's in tune tonight. Shadows fade, the truth comes through. Fresh start in the morning blue. Hey now, blue sky shining down. Lift your feet, don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day.
Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cats. I do appreciate you being here. Man, it was such an incredible weekend. Not really. I don't know. I'm not a big Super Bowl. I didn't watch any of it really. I watched the parts of the halftime show this morning, so that way I could have a hot take. Not really. Everybody hates the halftime show. I mean, nobody understood it because it was in Spanish. I have Spanish speaking friends. They said that they couldn't understand it. So I don't know what the hell he was talking or how he was speaking or what language he was speaking. It's probably demonic chanting. But Bad Bunny, his Super Bowl halftime show performance was a middle finger to the United States, was a middle finger to America. I'm not shocked. I didn't see, correct me if I'm wrong. I've only watched clips of it, folks. I didn't see, so there was rehearsal video of ICE agents tackling Bad Bunny. Now, I don't know if that actually happened during the halftime show. I don't think it did. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I only watched I don't know, a total of 5 minutes of it or 3 minutes of it. And I'm like, okay, I get a sense of what he's doing here. I watched parts of it and clips of it this morning, and I wasn't going to do that to myself. I did tune into the TPUSA, beautiful, wonderful TPUSA halftime show. We're gonna get to the numbers because it broke live streaming last night. So live streaming records, probably the in history, in modern American history, broke records for most viewers on a live stream. So we're going to talk about that. I also want to talk about Donald Trump confronting the press on Air Force One after that controversial video surfaced. I have a hot take about that, and I haven't really seen much of this take out there. I think that he did it on purpose. Here's why. The Epstein stuff is coming out, and that's dominating the news cycle. You guys know how much Donald Trump likes the Epstein stuff. He hates it. And we talked about that very, very much so on Friday. Epstein files, there's this weird cult like where they're eating babies. And, I think it's so funny. The conspiracy theorists, they really need an apology. Okay, Pizzagate. Clearly, all of this stuff was actually going on. I think a majority of what was going on Epstein's Island was just hot women, right? And parties and probably some blow, and they got our congressman and our Hollywood elite to go to these parties at Jeffrey Epstein, working with possibly the Israeli government to try to get some dirt on our congressman. So our congressmen would in turn vote for spending packages to, bomb Iran. I don't know what Lindsey Graham has on. No, I'm just kidding. But bomb Iran. And, I think that a majority of the people that were there were not a part of this really weird satanic cult going on. But there's some really weird stuff emerging from these emails. There was like this, and what needs to be investigated, they should reopen the investigation, 100% the FBI. This is something that people really care about. Obviously, Jeffrey Epstein, our Hollywood elite, our politicians going to these parties. And I think that Jeffrey Epstein would slip, a 16-year-old, 17-year-old into the mix and then get some dirt on our congressman. But for the most part, I think it was, above bar or like above board. I mean, I think that it's terrible that you got Hollywood elite. That is not my scene. Drinking girls, that's terrible. But these were parties, and then he suckered them in, got some tape on them, right? Which we should definitely see arrests. And if there were people who were human, we know Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of human trafficking. I want to know who he trafficked those humans to. But there's this weird, like cult-like faction within this, where there was probably people who got really cozy with Jeffrey Epstein and started being very honest and open via email about their sick baby eating fantasies and sacrifices, child sacrifices. And the conspiracy theorist said that, the world is kind of run by, I don't think that it's a majority of our congressmen and Hollywood elite. I would say it's a small little circle of complete weirdos that got so close to Jeffrey Epstein that they started to kind of practice this occult-like behavior. But there's just been so much news about it. The school pictures, I think they account for like 75% of the school pictures that are taken. This company, it was ultimately sold to BlackRock and Vanguard. But this company is named several times in the Jeffrey Epstein files that were dumped, the 3 million pages. That's concerning. And I always thought it was weird that old white guys would come take my picture for picture day. But, what did they do with all of those kids' faces? BlackRock, Vanguard, they bought this company. So things need to be investigated. People care about this stuff. I think that this was a way to distract. My point today is that this controversial video with Barack Obama at the end depicted as a gorilla with Michelle Michael Obama. They're depicted as gorillas at the very end. It looks like a mistake, but was it a mistake? And was this a way to kind of distract or take people's attention off of the Epstein files? And it worked. Obviously, I mean, this dominated the news cycle for 2-3 days, and then now it's kind of fading out. But I mean, also, Trump is doing things in Iran. We know that, and this might be a way to kind of deter the media for at least he does this. He deters the media, and then they're not focused on, report. He wants to deter the media from reporting on that stuff because it's national security. And like, we didn't even know the Venezuela kidnapping was going to happen. And I think at that time, Trump had given the media something to, whip themselves into a frenzy over, just to distract them long enough for him to carry out his global foreign policy. So I think that's what we're looking at here. A distraction, calculated, and quite frankly, genius. And deterring from the Epstein files. People really care about this stuff. I care about it. I want the FBI to reopen the investigation. But here's the thing. I think it was Thomas Massie. He's calling for the client list. That's what everybody wants. We want the people who are in this weird occult or this weird cult-like faction of the Epstein parties. Because really the Epstein parties, at this point, statutes of limitations has run out on it, even if they were, which is terrible. Don't get me wrong. But this is like 20 years ago, almost at this point. And the statute of limitations, if you were, caught sleeping with a 17-year-old girl, you're going to, these people are men of means, right? They're going to fight that charge, and you're not going to get a conviction. What I want are the really weirdos, people who are doing terrible things to 13-year-olds, possibly infants, eating them. I want those people, but you're never going to get those people, because I think that those people are probably definitely sealed up in these court documents. He's calling Thomas Massie on the DOJ for the client list. Well, Thomas Massie, you idiot, the client list has been sealed up by not Donald Trump, but national intelligence communities from prior administrations. And those were sealed up. The national intelligence communities directed the courts to seal that up due to national security. You're never going to touch those. And I think Trump understands that, hey, at this point, statute of limitations is up. This story has kind of run its course. What can we do about it? Absolutely nothing. And I know that's a really hard pill for people to swallow, but there is absolutely nothing that Trump can do, the DOJ can do at this point. And it's a really hard pill for people to swallow. So I think Trump's in the right to try to get this out of the cycle, the media cycle, the Epstein files, because we've got to move on. And I don't think that we're ever going to get those court documents unsealed. I don't even think it's possible. Perhaps Tulsi Gabbard is who Thomas Massie should be calling on. And Trump could get Tulsi Gabbard to possibly unseal those court documents, but I don't think that's even really possible, because national security actions taken by prior administrations out of national security or out of concern for national security, the preceding presidents, they really can't touch that stuff. It's sort of precedented where, hey, if a president acted out of national security, this wasn't Trump's fault. But Trump knows. He knows that there's people out there who, slept with the 17-year-old. They slipped to 17. Jeffrey Epstein got dirt on them. And he knows that those people, they will never see justice, because the statute of limitations, they're men of means. Now, I want the really weirdos. I want the stuff that's sealed up. I want the client list. I want Jeffrey Epstein's inner circle, the people who were comfortable enough with him to reveal their deepest, darkest fantasies about eating children. And their satanic rituals of child sacrifice. Those are the people I want. I don't think we're ever going to get those people. Okay. Then a little bit later in the show, we are going to be talking about the Illinois Democrats. I think this is so funny. They want to fine you $100,000 or $500,000, depending on if you are doing it on a no-burn day. $500,000, $100,000 if you're burning without a permit. But they want to control your backyard fire now, because that is the most pressing issue in the state of Illinois. The rural people, the rural residents, they're burning fires in their backyard, and we really got to get that under control, I guess. So the rural residents naturally are outraged. Let's get to Bad Bunny. It was a middle finger to white America. I'd say it's a middle finger to America. I have Spanish-speaking friends who watched Bad Bunny last night. And they said that they couldn't even really understand what he was saying. Okay, so I mean, I think that this is just a middle finger to America, Spanish speaking, bilingual Americans who watched this and said, I can't even understand what he's saying. I like America. This is the National Football League. This is not the World Football League. I came here to watch football, the American sport. And now I'm like watching a guy, try to pretend that all these countries are a part of America, and it's clearly not. The reason why I came here and obtained my legal citizenship, my Spanish speaking friends, they're legal. They're not here illegally. And they said, like, I don't even know what he was saying. I'm pretty sure it wasn't even Spanish. So what was he speaking? Probably some sort of demonic chanting. But they sit down to watch the National Football League Super Bowl, and they're expecting, I mean, Spanish-speaking people, German-speaking people, French-speaking people, you sit down to watch the National Football League, there's an expectation to have the Super Bowl be very patriotic, be very American, or have this American culture type feel to it. America has a culture, and I'll play some previous performances at the Super Bowl where you definitely get this patriotic feeling, and you can see American culture in certain performances. And I don't even think it was so much the Spanish speaking, because Shakira, she spoke Spanish, I think, in one of her, or in a performance, a Super Bowl performance. But it was good, and it felt American. The Spanish speaking part, I'm not even all that upset with. But two, he wasn't even really speaking Spanish from what I hear. I mean, I don't speak Spanish, so I don't really know. I couldn't tell you, but it sounds like that even Spanish speakers didn't know what he was saying. So Bad Bunny's Super Bowl performance at the halftime show last night, it was worse than I thought it would be. He managed to blow my expectations out of the water. It was much worse than I thought it would be. Now, I did think, because rehearsal footage got leaked, I thought that he was going to have ICE agents, like people depicted as ICE, wearing ICE costumes, completely just tackle him to the ground. I thought that's what he was going to do in this performance. Now, I haven't seen any clips of it. Like I said, I wasn't going to watch it. I hate the NFL, hate the Super Bowl halftime performances. I don't know when, I think Americans stopped watching Super Bowl halftime shows. They've opted for the Puppy Bowl. Last night, they opted for the TPUSA halftime show, the alternative halftime show, and the live stream numbers show this. But it's just not a kid-friendly performance. When you've got people shaking their naked, half-naked bodies up there, and you've got your kids in the living room. Sorry, no. So heading into the performance, the predictable cries of racist were screamed. If anybody had a problem with the selection, Bad Bunny, because he's like Puerto Rican, I guess. And they were saying, oh, you're racist if you take issue with the selection. I think that the selection was just poor, because nobody knows who Bad Bunny is. I think all the NFL players said, they were asked individually, are you excited for Bad Bunny's performance? What's your favorite song? Nobody knows who this guy is. I think that there's one TikTok sound that trends that I semi know of his, but nobody knows who this singer is. Usually you pick a household name. Rihanna, Beyonce, Michael Jackson, Creed, these are household names in America. This guy is, nobody knows his music at all. He doesn't even sing in the national language, English. That's our national language. If you don't like it, too bad. That's just the way it is. Majority English speaking country. And he doesn't sing songs in English. Okay. So, and it's not even so much that he sang the song in Spanish that pissed me off. It's his hatred for the United States of America and this weird idea that every Spanish speaking country, every Latin American country is somehow America. It's a very globalist take. And I don't know, conservatives aren't mad because he sang in Spanish. I don't even think he really sang in Spanish because, like I said, Shakira sang in Spanish and the Super Bowl, and a lot of people loved Shakira. She did like a, what do you call it? Like a wave, or where people like grabbed her body and like, you know, moved her across the crowd, across the audience. People were really pumped about Shakira at the Super Bowl, and she sang in Spanish. I don't think that was necessarily the huge problem here, although I don't think he was actually singing in Spanish. I think he was actually chanting something. America takes issue with this guy being selected because, one, we don't know him. He's not a household name. Why would you pick somebody who has no name recognition at all? The NFL football players don't know who he is. And he wears a dress like a weirdo. The picture is real. There's a picture circulating online. It's gone viral where he's in a transgender dress, like a weirdo. Okay. Men wearing dresses, weird. Okay. He won't stand for the national anthem and he burns the American flag. Okay. So, this is Benny Johnson, his take. He took issue kind of with the Spanish speaking, but he tells you about the performance numbers for TPUSA and how they outpaced kind of, as far as, you know, I'm concerned, live streaming. The numbers broke records here. And I think that had TPUSA been on a channel, like a mainstream channel, it definitely would have blown the Bad Bunny performance out of the water. Take a listen.
NFL and their competing halftime shows tonight, and it wasn't even close. And here's why. The NFL is an American football league. It's called the National Football League, not the World Football League. There's no World Cup for football. It's a uniquely American sport. Our national language is English. Do you speak it? And the NFL did not tonight. They had a press one for English, a pretty much commercial for mass deportations as they brought in Bad Bunny, who didn't sing a single song in English, had a creatively bankrupt performance. It was woke. It was cringe. It was hard to watch. It was derivative. It was preachy. It's all the things you don't want your performance to be. Most importantly, and most devastatingly enough for the NFL, there's not a single banger. There's not a single song that anybody could sing at home because the vast majority of the NFL fans don't speak Spanish. And the vast majority of the customers for the NFL want to listen to music that makes them feel good. And that's what music is. This is a culture that's contributed virtually nothing to the National Football League. This is not the World Cup. This is just, the NFL just could not have bombed worse in this. This is a catastrophe for the NFL. Bad Bunny and that performance is not charting. It's not trending. It's nowhere. It's vanished. Nobody cared. At least last year, Kendrick Lamar, like people were talking about it. It was a conversation starter. No one's going to rewatch this. Meanwhile, Turning Point USA nearly broke the all-time streamer record on YouTube. If they had just broadcasted on one single channel, then they would have probably had the most watched live stream in the history of YouTube. This is a total and complete cultural victory for Turning Point. So what Turning Point delivered was what the NFL should have done, which is songs in English, feel-good songs that people know from artists who love America. This is not that hard. It's an American sport. The NFL sees itself as a globalist organization. They want to be a globalist brand. And so they're going to destroy, just like every other brand, they're going to destroy their own customer base while doing that because they're going to alienate them and isolate them. Could you imagine a bigger FU in the history of corporate America than to have your premier game not be in the language of all of the fans? Yeah, it's the dumbest move I've ever seen in my life. And Turning Point totally and completely mogged them. and they deserve it. Well done, Turning Point. Massive cultural victory. Charlie is smiling down from heaven, and I hope there were a lot of deportations at that halftime show.
I like how this commenter chimed in. Illegal immigrants are net fiscal drains. They do pay a significant amount of taxes. We estimate illegal immigrants pay $25.9 billion. I'm assuming it's a year. This got cut off. Not sure where those numbers come from, but yeah, I mean, yes, of course they're going to pay taxes, things like sales taxes, income taxes, things like that. But that's not, and this is a silly argument from the left that paying taxes makes you a U.S. citizen or makes you have some sort of temporary status here or justifies you being here. No, we have immigration laws, and you have to take, tests, U.S. citizenship test. There's people who have done it and have become naturalized or obtained some sort of temporary status, taxpayer. And you're right, overall, 25.9, that's a lot of taxes. And I'm assuming it was per year. They spend more on that in benefits. So, illegal immigrants do pay some taxes. We estimate illegal immigrants paid roughly $5.9 billion in federal income tax, $6.2 billion in social security. I'm sure that's what you said. 3.8 in Medicaid. I don't know where you're getting your numbers from. I'm just reading your comment. However, it's a net fiscal drain. Because of the welfare programs. I don't know where your other number is, but yeah, fiscal drain. But then again, it's like such a silly argument that the left uses. They try to argue that because illegal immigrants pay taxes, they're citizens. No, right? There's laws and ways to become a U.S. citizen or to attain temporary status, and you have to abide by those. You don't just get to border jump and then, pay for a bottle of soda and pay sales tax, and then all of a sudden you're a citizen. That's not how it works. Okay, so let's look at some of the performance. I'm sorry I have to do this to you. Almost entirely in Spanish. I think Lady Gaga was the only English-speaking part, but let's take a listen here.
Muchas novias, hoy tengo a una, mañana otra, pero no hay boda. Y me pregunto si tengo muchas novias, muchas novias, hoy tengo a una, mañana otra, me las voy a llevar a todas pa' un VIP, saludan a Titi, vamos a tirar un selfie, 6 chis, que sonrían y ralean la expectativa en un VIP, saludan a Titi, vamos a tirar un selfie. Que se rían las que se olvidaron ya de mí. Me gustan mucho las Gabriela, la Patricia, la Nicole, la Sofía. Mi primera novia en Quito, el María. Y mi primer amor se llama Batalía. Tengo una colombiana que me escribe todos los días y una mexicana que ni yo sabía. Otra en San Antena que me quiere todavía. Y las TPR que toditas son.
See, and what's really annoying about all of this, like he's going to these various vendors, and then they've got the tropical plants, and like I get what he's doing here. He's trying to show the culture of Latin America and how great it is. But, this is stereotypical. This is a stereotype of Latin America. Go to Latin America and, not go to these American resorts, in Mexico. Step off the American resort and you tell me that it's, it's just vendors giving you drinks and food. And no, you can't drink the water in those places. The infrastructure is so terrible. Actually, in Mexico, you walk down the street. If you step off in an American resort, you walk down the street, they've got kind of electricity, but the infrastructure is so bad. Like the electrical lines are just hanging down so low and you can hear them buzzing. And you could see the poles just like shaking and they're about ready to collapse. Like what little electricity they've got. These are third world shitholes. Okay. I'm done playing nice and being cutesy about it. It's true. Okay. It's not as great as America. It's the greatest place on earth. And what he's trying to do here, by going to these various vendors and drinking, and then there's these pretty women, that is not how real Latin America is, or Mexico or Puerto Rico. We're talking impoverished countries where people are eating out of buckets. The sanitation is not there. The cleanliness is not there. These are places where you would die by drinking the water or get sick by drinking the water. Go to Mexico. They tell you not to drink the water. Okay, so he ended the performance. This is fascinating. With 3 words in English. He said, "God bless America." But he didn't mean it in the way that you think he did. Okay. He listed a lot of Latin American countries, and he had the performers prancing around holding the Latin American countries' flags. And in Spanish, I guess this is how it was translated. Like I said, a lot of Spanish-speaking people I've spoken to, a few of my friends who are Spanish-speaking, they said they hated it because they couldn't even understand it at all. And they didn't even recognize it as the Spanish language. But apparently he said, the only thing more powerful than hate is love. And then he spikes the football, and the football had writing on it, and it said, "Together we are America." And it was written on there, on the football, and meaning that all these countries are America. Okay, so he thinks that all these countries, these flags from Latin America, I think Puerto Rico flag, Cuba, whatever, they were all, the dancers were prancing around with them. I'm sorry, but nope. There is one America, USA. And I'm sorry, your Latin America countries are not a part of it. Puerto Rico, I guess. It's a territory. But take a listen. Here's where he says, "God bless America." Take a listen. Here we go.
God bless America. Sea Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, Perú, Ecuador, Brasil, Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Panamá, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, México, Cuba, República Dominicana, Jamaica, Haití, las Antillas, United States, Canadá, and my motherland, mi patria, Puerto Rico. Seguimos aquí.
So what he says, "God bless America," and then he rambles off all of these countries that are not America, but yet he includes them as America. Bad Bunny, fun little fact, he did not stand for the song "God Bless America" during a Yankees game in October of last year. In October. So he's criticized for that. Funny how he says "God bless America" now, but wouldn't even stand for the song at a Yankees game in October. During the Super Bowl halftime show, he said "God bless America," but don't be fooled. That is not a compromising gesture. He listed the names of countries, and these countries are Spanish speaking. They're not on the continent of America. Okay, they're South America. They are not the United States of America, these countries that he rambled off. What he's intending to do here is to shift this phrase, "God bless America," this expression of patriotism for the United States. And what he's trying to do is change it and praise Latin American countries as if they've contributed anything to the rich history of the United States of America and its founding. Latin America did not contribute anything to the founding of the United States. That was Pilgrims. Prior to that, Christopher Columbus. Our founding fathers, the American Revolution. No Latin American countries made any significant contributions. I mean, you could argue Christopher Columbus because he came from Spain, but they hate Christopher Columbus because he was a Christian, and they say that he stole the land. Okay, so these same people who would say, Latin America is a part of the United States, they rip on Christopher Columbus for saying that he was a white guy that stole land from the native people. So which is it? Right. Lady Gaga sang in English. Here she is.
You already know what you mean to me, and our love's the only one worth fighting for. Wherever you go, that's where I'll follow.
So that was a big middle finger to the United States. That halftime show. Lady Gaga, by the way, named in the Epstein files. Excuse me. The Super Bowl halftime show was a slap in the face to America. The NFL should be ashamed, but they won't be. They love the wokeness. Although we saw Target, Cracker Barrel. You go woke, you go broke. I don't understand why the NFL is so hell bent on having woke halftime shows every single year. They've never made an attempt, really, in recent years, to be patriotic, to entertain most people in America. They always try to placate to the minority, the left. Okay, and like I said, I've got a couple of friends. They said that Bad Bunny, they didn't understand what he was saying, and they're pretty sure it's not even Spanish. So if it wasn't Spanish, what was it? I'm pretty sure it was probably demonic chanting of some kind, some sort of weird ass ritual. And we know how much the Hollywood elite love their rituals. Just take a look at the emails that were dumped a couple of weeks ago from the DOJ. President Donald Trump took to Truth Social. He said the Super Bowl halftime show was absolutely terrible, the worst ever. Yeah, I'd say it was pretty bad. At least like the what was his name? Kilmer, the guy who did the Super Bowl last year. At least like his kind of sparked a conversation. I think it was Kilmer. Kendrick Lamar, sorry. Yeah, I don't know these people. I see every year they go less and less with name recognition. Like a Katy Perry or Rihanna, I'm not fans. Lady Gaga, even, I'm not fans, but at least they've got the name recognition. Kendrick Lamar, I didn't know who that was. He has one sound on TikTok that trends just like this guy. But at least Kendrick Lamar's, there was a conversation started to be had there, because it was, metaphorical. This was just blatantly I hate America and go Latin America. This was blatantly an FU to Americans. But he goes on in the Truth Social post. He goes, it makes no sense. It's an affront to the American or the greatness of America and doesn't represent our standards of success, creativity, or excellence. Nobody understands a word this guy is saying. The dancing is disgusting, especially for young children who are watching from throughout the USA. That's why I don't put it on in my house. Rihanna, I think she was pregnant. I think that was the last one that was really provocative. She semi-dressed modestly in comparison to other performances like Beyonce. I think she had a notably disgusting one, but I don't put it on in my house because it's pornography. I mean, that's what it is. And there's young children at home watching, and I just don't agree that our Super Bowl halftime show should be that provocative and sexualized. But it is, so I don't put it on. Children are watching throughout the USA and all over the world. This show is a slap in the face to our country. which is setting standards and records every single day. Best stock market and 401ks in history. Of course, Donald Trump had to slip that in his Truth Social post. He says there's nothing inspirational about this mess of a halftime show. And watch, it will get great reviews from the fake news media because they haven't got a clue what's going on in the real world. And by the way, the NFL should immediately replace its ridiculous kickoff rule. Make America great again, President Donald J. Trump. Yeah. There used to be good halftime shows, and unfortunately, it was all when I was too little to understand. But there are some legendary halftime shows that I would have loved to have been there for. I was born in 1999, but there were some really good ones. I think Michael Jackson was 1993. There's some legendary ones. We need to set the bar a smidge higher, NFL. Like, number one, it's the National Football League. You should be speaking, your singers should be speaking the language in which the Super Bowl is like as fans speak, right? I feel like that should be a given. These people also have to care about America and care about the American pastime football. I guarantee you Bad Bunny does not care about football. He was holding a football the entire time. Has he ever thrown a football? Has he ever sat down and watched? I know he just watches soccer probably. Right? Like, and as Betty Johnson said, this isn't the World Cup. Yeah. So the halftime shows, they have been legendary in the past. I'll share a couple of them with you. The ones that I like. Creed put on the greatest halftime show, I think, ever in the history of football. Nothing comes close to this performance. Very patriotic. Take a look.
Let's go there. Let's make our escape. Come on, let's go there. Let's us can we stay? Can you take me higher to a place where blind man see? Can you take me higher to a place where golden
Beautiful. One of the best. I nothing comes close to that. There's a few other ones. I want to address this comment. That's not true. Latin America is part of America. You hate the people, but love the labor they give y'all. Educate yourself. America was built on the backs of Latin Americans and many more immigrants. Okay, so okay. Let me ask you this. Is Somali, I think, is part of your handle name, which is kind of funny. Let me ask you this. Christopher Columbus, okay. Can we agree that he was a Spanish navigator? He voyaged across the Atlantic Ocean, and he was Spanish and came over here. Can you recognize Christopher Columbus as a good guy in history and part of the foundation for America? If you can tell me that you love Christopher Columbus and can appreciate his contributions to America, then I will listen to what you have to say. Okay. Christopher Columbus brought Christianity over here. He tried to, convert some of these Native Americans to Christianity. That was his goal. He wanted to come to the United States, spread Christianity, spread the good news, Jesus, all over. And it was an impressive voyage. And they hate him. In fact, they renamed Christopher Columbus Day Indigenous People Day. So don't get mad at me. Okay, the people on your side erase true Latin American type figures from history and their contributions to history. It's the woke who have done that. So, yeah, if you can't admit that Christopher Columbus is incredible and contributed to this nation's rich history, then we've got nothing to talk about. Okay. I will say that Latin America has had some impact on America through Christopher Columbus and some other Spanish explorers. But the woke whitey liberals hate him. They hate Christopher Columbus. And there are, Spanish explorer, the Mexico, some nasty things happened between the Texans and Mexicans. And I would say that the Texans, the Protestant Christians, reigned supreme. They were the victors. And ultimately they had a contribution to this nation's history and founding and our rich history here in the United States. And the Mexicans made it much, much more harder for us to gain some sort of independence and identity, because they were terrible people and impoverished. I mean, we just talked about Billie Eilish and LA. Her mansion is on the Tongva tribe land. The Spanish took it from the Tongva, and then from there, I think the Mexicans took it from the Spanish. And then from there, we took it from them because they were mistreating their people. There was no such thing as property rights. Every single time the Protestant Christians come in, for example, the Texans, they were much better to the people. They believed in things like property rights. Teamed up with the Spanish to take out the Mexicans in the Texan independence war. And then one of the Spanish guys, Tejanos, he was a Tejano, double-crossed the Texans and double-crossed these Protestant Christians, and teamed back up with the Mexicans and allowed them to take over. I think it was Dallas. But yeah, traditionally, I would say white liberals are the ones who are spit all over Latin American contributions to America's history. Always were the winners. The European settlers, the Protestant Christians. We were the winners in the end, and ultimately, it doesn't really matter. The losers don't get remembered in history. So let's talk. Oh, there was one more legendary halftime show. I love Creed. That's a great one. That one was in 2001. I was born for that one. I didn't get to see it in my lifetime, but this one was in 2002. U2. They performed, and they actually paid tribute to the 9/11 victims at the Super Bowl. Take a look.
The thundercloud passes rain, so let it rain, let it rain, rain on me.
Now that's a legendary halftime performance. I'm not going to play the whole clip, but yeah, I don't tune into these lib fest. I didn't either. I didn't watch the game. I don't watch the Super Bowl ever. I don't allow it in my house because the blatant sexualizing or sexual performance, that's just not something I want in my home. You are the guardian of your home and what your family sees and consumes and what you consume. I don't even allow it in my home. I watched clips this morning so that way I could give you guys a take. It was just a big middle finger to the United States of America and, Latin American contributions to our history. I could name one and the libs hate it. And Latin America is not a part of our history because guess what? They were the losers. Okay. Largely outside of, I would say, maybe Christopher Columbus and some Spanish explorers, but ultimately we were the winners in the end. So what's your favorite Super Bowl halftime show performances and before they went woke and before this country started placating to a very small portion of the United States, the left? Let me know in the comment section what your favorite Super Bowl halftime performances were. All right, let's talk about what happened over the weekend. The media went into a complete frenzy. They whipped themselves into a frenzy. They erupted over this post on Trump's Truth Social. The press, social media, they have whipped themselves, the blue check marks, they've whipped themselves into a frenzy over the social media post by the president. They labeled it racist. They claimed that it showed former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama as cartoon apes, and that was extremely racist. That's their argument. And look, they went into a loud, chaotic meltdown. Okay, they were howling. They were screaming at the sky, turning blue in the face. Or red in the face. They were like primates, to stick with the primate theme. They were howling, okay, like baboons, loud, the left over the social media post. And it was, as usual, more to the story than what they were telling you. Okay, so they conveniently left out a part and they pushed this propaganda out there. And they only the loyal leftist crowd, they only looked at the headlines. Trump posts Barack Obama as ape in racist social media post or whatever, the headlines. And then you have the loyal crowd and they just read the headline and they don't look any further into it. Context rarely survives when outrage is the goal, by the way. That is the mainstream media's goal. That is these blue checkmark type journalist goals. They want chaos and outrage. Instead of slowing down and understanding actually what happened, these voices rush straight to conclusions and they just repeat the same talking point. Trump is racist. Trump is racist. Okay, so that leaves us with people like me who are capable of taking a breath, stepping back. Hey, what actually happened here? Let's think this through. Okay, let's sort out the facts from the noise, and let's not jump to this conclusion that Trump is racist and he posted Barack Obama as apes. Barack Obama and Michelle Obama as apes. Okay, I'm not going to deal with the whole rhetorical or rhetoric being thrown around that Trump is racist. I'm not going to do that until I pause, look at the full picture, understand the story, and then I'll react. So the media culture is built on speed and not necessarily common sense and patience. Okay. So there was a screenshot traveling around, and by the time the screenshot was traveling around, Trump had taken down the Truth Social post. So people were left scrambling. Hey, what does this mean? They didn't wait for common sense or facts. They just jumped on it with anger and threw around rhetoric like Trump is racist. Here are the facts. Let me point that out first. Okay, the video that caused this hysteria, the howling at the moon, hysteria from the left, was posted and then it was taken down. It was a minute-long clip about voter fraud. And then at the very end is where the controversial element was. there was an autoplay function. If you scroll, somebody was screen recording, a staffer probably. Donald Trump doesn't, tweet his own stuff or post his own stuff. There was an autoplay function. Somebody was probably screen recording the video, screen grabbing the video. Autoplay function happened, and the upsetting visuals were at the very end of the screen recording. And the video was not properly edited to edit out that literal second of the autoplay function, where a meme of Barack Obama dancing with Michelle Obama as an ape, along with other Democrats. J.B. Pritzker depicted as an elephant. AOC, I think she was depicted as some sort of like donkey or something like that. I don't know. There was a much longer video, but the first part of the video got clipped into this larger screen grab of a voter fraud video. Okay. So the clip with the Obamas, it wasn't even really an Obama focused video. It was a satirical, funny AI cartoon depicting an array of Democrat figures as African animals from The Lion King. Okay. AOC, I think she might have been a zebra or something. I don't know. But it was funny. And it's called comedy. Okay. That's clearly comedic. And I don't know why. And this just goes to show you the laughter. They're just not funny. They're not like happy people. If somebody made fun of me for being white, and people do, I mean, I am your basic white girl, like Starbucks and Stanley in my hand, like love getting my nails done. I don't know, like whatever white people trope is out there, I probably fit it. Okay. I'm as white as they come. And I think it's funny when people make fun of me. And I don't get thrown into a frenzy, losing my mind over it. Okay. If it's funny and it's an actual like hilarious, you can make fun of white people. And if the meme hits, who cares? You know what I mean? Even if it is somewhat racist, you could make the argument that depicting Michelle and Brock as apes in the video, outside of like say JB Pritzker as an ape, you chose the black people to depict them as apes. You could argue that that's racist, but in this context, it's not supposed to be taken seriously. It's supposed to be taken as a joke. Stand-up comedians, they do racist jokes all the time. Like, racism is protected by free speech. Okay. Are there jokes that could be very distasteful? 100%. And that kind of varies person to person. Let me try to think of one that I just think is distasteful. I don't know. A lot of the some Jewish jokes just don't hit for me. They're just distasteful, some of them. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head, but there's been racist jokes where I'm like, it just didn't hit. It was just kind of, but that's me, right? It's racism is protected by free speech. And this wasn't meant to be taken like literally, like I'm calling a Barack Obama an ape. Literally, I'm calling Michelle an ape. This is supposed to be satirical. It's supposed to be funny. And people just can't take a joke. And Biden was a baboon in it, right? I mean, you could make the argument that they were being racist by depicting Michelle and Brock as the apes, but or they were making a fat joke about Pritzker. They depicted him as or whoever they is. It's this meme spiff account, okay? And like the internet is loaded with this stuff. Like I see way more racist things than this, right? On the internet, there's just the internet's loaded with racism, loaded with fat phobia or fat jokes. You can't police the internet. People are going to do things on the internet that might be distasteful or considered distasteful by some. I thought that this was like right on. I thought that this was funny. I didn't see it as a racist trope depicting Brock and Michelle as apes. Right when I watched the full video, I was like, this wasn't like Obama focused racist trope. They were just depicting, Democrats as African animals. Now, I do think that they were trying to make a fat joke. The memester was making a fat joke about J.B. Pritzker because he was depicted as the elephant. I thought that was very funny. But like, does that mean I'm like fat phobic or hate fat people? No. I thought it was funny because I can laugh at life. Anyway, so the full video on Donald Trump's Truth Social account was not the Obama video, the African animal video was not the focus of the social media post. That was 1 second and it looked like it was edited in by mistake. I'm going to argue that it wasn't a mistake because I've got a hot take on that. I think that this was Donald Trump being Donald Trump, sending the media into a frenzy, distracting them from a different story, trying to get them to talk about the Dominion voting machine and how we know actually Tulsi Gabbard was on the ground in Fulton County, Georgia, and people have been talking about this. Like, is there foreign interference in our elections? There's a Taiwan chip in the that's been discovered in Dominion voting machines. Okay, this is huge. There's currently an investigation. There was a search warrant executed. So I think that Donald Trump doing this was purposeful. Or at least the people, because I highly doubt that there's not a process in place where at least 7 people review the Truth Social account before the post goes up. Okay. I just have a hard time believing that. There's an entire communications team. Most likely this was a purposeful mistake, and Donald Trump is whipping the media into a frenzy like he always does for a calculated purpose, and he's playing 4D chess with these people, and these people bought it hook, line, and sinker. But the clip was originally about election fraud. Okay, this is the brief snippet. Check out the very end of the clip. Not sure if it was totally intentional. That's my take. Okay, folks, I think that it was intentional because they're doing something calculated with it. They want people to talk about the foreign interference in the 2020 election. They want the media to have to play the entirety of this clip and show, on their mainstream platforms, the entirety of this clip. And people are going to start saying, there was a Taiwan chip in a Dominion voting machine. That's weird. Huh. Oh, we're not talking about Epstein anymore. Oh, the conversation has completely shifted. Oh, Donald Trump is doing things at a global on a global level when it comes to Iran, and he's making moves, and the media is not talking about that. They're talking about Barack Obama being depicted as an ape. Oh, I think that it was somewhat intentional, if you ask me, but take a look. Here we go.
Investigation team obtained forensic access to a DS200 tabulator, the machine that counts the votes. A Telit 4G wireless chip manufactured in Taiwan was discovered embedded into the motherboard. The voting machine tapes clearly indicate modem engagement and transmission of election data. Some of the anomalies that we noticed in the 2020 general elections, that 5 key states all stopped counting at a certain time in these key battleground states. These were all where the software, Dominion machines, ES&S machines were used, the Smartmatic, the GEMS software. So when the vote stopped counting, and this has been noted in other countries as well, President Trump was significantly ahead. When reporting and counting resumed, there was a massive spike occurred that favored Joe Biden.
Okay, so they swipe back up to the video, which could indicate like, oh, shoot, I didn't want that. And they just didn't edit out the end of that clip. Like, this was clearly an autoplay. Was it intentional? I don't know. I'm suspecting it is because Donald Trump's team, like communication team, I'm sure there's like 7 people who reviewed that before, Truth Socialing that out. And again, were the Obamas intentionally shown as apes as a racist joke? Perhaps. Okay. But even if that were the case, like, this is the internet, folks. Okay. Get over it. There's racism on the internet. There's sexism on the internet. There's comedians, stand-up comedians who have done worse jokes than this. Okay. This is racism is protected by freedom of speech. You're racist. And no, right? This is just an internet meme. It's supposed to be taken satirically and not taken seriously. That's the whole point of it being a joke. But there's no clear proof of what the intent here was behind this full video, and I'll show you the full video. The video was not created by the White House. The video was not created by the president. It was some memester, anonymous memester online. And we don't know if this anonymous memester, even if his intent was to depict the Obamas as apes as a form of a racist joke. And even if he did, that's kind of the whole point, isn't it? Like, it's a meme. It's satirical. It's funny. It's supposed to be, right? And maybe you don't find it funny, but that's the beauty about humor and this little thing that we call freedom of speech. You might find it distasteful. Somebody might find it funny. I happen to find it hilarious. So if it was truly an unintentional mistake, like, the Trump team has got to do better. Okay. Any excuse at all, that you give the media, they will figure out how to pounce on this. Okay. Don't give them excuses. If this was totally unintentional, which I don't think it was unintentional, I think it was intentional. I think it was a form of distraction away from the Epstein files. I think that they want people talking about the Dominion voting machines and foreign election interference because of a case that is working its way through an investigation. There was a search warrant conducted. Tulsi Gabbard was on the ground indicating that there could be some sort of foreign interference with our 2020 election. So, like, I think that this was all intentional. Donald Trump was doing things as far as foreign policy, and he tends to whip up the media in a frenzy over something silly so that way he can focus on and keep the media from focusing on what he's doing on a foreign policy level. He did the same thing. I forget what story it was in Venezuela. Like, they were so focused on like something so stupid. And they had no idea that he was going to go kidnap Maduro. Kidnap. So anyway, the left, they will attack instantly if you give them reason to. Okay. Anything that they can find that's offensive or could be damaging to the president, they will find it and they will attack instantly, like a lion charging at a buffalo with a shattered leg in the African savannah. Okay, that's what the left does. If they sense weakness, they go for the kill, and they will call him racist. So if it was an unintentional mistake, like, come on, guys, do better. But like I said, I don't think it was unintentional. I think that it was completely calculated, and this is Trump playing 4D chess. So let's look at the complete video. You guys can decide if it was intentionally the creator here, the memester, if he intentionally depicted the Obamas as monkeys as a form of racism. He chose to put this, the creator, in the beginning, probably to grab attention, and it did its job, right? This has gotten insane attention, this video. And that was probably his goal, make it slightly racist so people, the shock value of it. This is how comedy is made. Take a look.
I
In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. In the jungle, the quiet jungle, the lion sleeps
So Donald Trump did not post this. It's a meme. It's hilarious. I think it's so funny. I've watched it like 600 times. It's very funny. Look, you know, the media, they should be talking about the video that I played before, the Taiwanese chip that interfered with the election, stopped the election in the Dominion voting machines, and the tabulating was paused at a certain point and then all of a sudden flipped to Joe Biden in the 2020 election. You would think if we had a serious media, they'd be talking about that. But instead, they're talking about monkeys in a meme and calling the president racist for the umpteenth time. President Donald Trump did not get all milk toast on me, which is great. This is a trait that has served him well. He does not apologize. He does not turn milk toast to the press reactions. He does not bend the knee, and that really throws these people off. Like, they get thrown off balance when Trump doesn't apologize or freak out due to the press reaction. So this platoon of DC belly achers, they have been conditioned to see political figures cower when they blast them. Okay, so traditionally, these journalists from Washington, if they blast you in the headlines, they're expecting you as a political figure to cower, to turn apologetic, to turn into a puddle of tears, due to their due to the press reaction. They want you to cower. They demand it because they are scumbags, the press. But Trump doesn't succumb to it ever. And it continues to throw them off balance. He never succumbs to their standards. In fact, I'll share this with you. This was Caitlin Collins. She was completely perplexed as to why she did not apologize for the Hakeem Jeffries sombrero video. Take a listen.
Now from Vice President Vance, not just defending that AI racist video of Minority Leader Jeffries wearing a sombrero, but also like celebrating that video. And it was playing on a loop in the briefing room today. What are you hearing from the inside about that?
It was not only just playing on a loop in the briefing room. If you've never been in the press briefing room, for those who haven't, there are loudspeakers overhead so you can hear announcements or what's being said, or if there's an event going on with the president in the Rose Garden, for example. They were playing that mariachi music as well over the loudspeakers for all the press that was coming in and out of the White House today inside the press briefing room. It just kind of gives you a window, John, into how they're dealing with this and how they believe they have the upper hand when it comes to the messaging here, and also kind of how things have changed from the first time Donald Trump was in office. I mean, there was a shutdown then. I remember all 35 days of it. As the president said at the beginning, he'd be proud to shut the government down, and then it ended, obviously, with him not getting the money for his border wall. This time, there's a moment here. They're being heavily criticized over these posts by the president, by Democrats, and instead of backing off or apologizing for it, they're leaning into it, and they're playing the music over loudspeakers and on repeat inside the briefing room because they simply don't care about that criticism.
All right, Caitlin Collins, thank you very much.
You're right, Caitlin Collins. They simply don't care. How is it racist? Hakeem Jeffries, I'm pretty sure he's not like Spanish or anything, right? And putting a sombrero on him, like he's black, I'm pretty sure. And putting a sombrero on him because they wanted to fund illegals. Like, yeah, that's funny. Illegals, from Mexico, Latin America, Venezuela, they wanted to give them free healthcare with taxpayer dollars. So Caitlin Collins was losing her marbles over this, completely perplexed as to why they weren't cowering or turning into a puddle of tears. So this charge of racism was attempted with the Hakeem Jeffries sombrero thing. Okay, on True Social, it was an AI video, and Caitlin Collins was dismayed. Sounds like it. She was very dismayed that they didn't care about the accusations of racism hurled by the media, the mainstream. She seems upset that they don't care. NBC News, they covered the president's response to this video, the election video with the snippet of the Obamas depicted as gorillas at the end. They covered the president's response, and they covered it in a very shallow, narrow way, as we could imagine. It's NBC. Okay, so he was boarding Air Force One, or on Air Force One, on a flight, and right before they took off, the media pack, they went up to the president and started yelling at him about this, and he held his ground. He refused to accept the accusations of racism thrown at him, and that refusal to apologize or accept this accusation of racism, they took that, NBC, CNN, and the rest of them, they took that and they took that as another way to try to take him down. They said, oh, and now we won't apologize. He's not only a racist, but he won't even apologize for his racism. Right. Oh, this is another offense that he's committed. And his unwillingness to bow down to the claims of racism has been used as another weapon against him. Okay. And they swing that as eagerly as the original charge of racism, that he won't apologize for his racism. Take a look at what President Donald Trump
did. Who sent it, and are you going to fire them?
I looked at it. I saw it, and I just looked at the first part. It was about voter fraud in someplace, Georgia. There was a lot of voter fraud, 2020 voter fraud, and I didn't see the whole thing. I guess during the end of it, there was some kind of a picture that people don't like. I wouldn't like it either, but I didn't see it. I looked at the first part, and it was really about voter fraud in and the machines, how crooked it is, how disgusting it is. Then I gave it to the people. Generally, they look at the whole thing, but I guess somebody didn't, and they posted, and we took it down, and we did it. But that was a voter fraud that nobody talks about. They don't like to talk about that post. We took it down as soon as we found out about it.
Mr. President, a number of Republicans are calling on you.
Didn't make a mistake. I mean, I look at a lot of thousands of things. I looked at the beginning of it. It was fine. They had that one post, and I guess it was a takeoff. By the way, a lot of people covered. If you look at where it came from, I guess it was a takeoff on The Lion King. And certainly it was a very strong post in terms of voter fraud. Nobody knew that was at the end. If they would.
So I think he played them, like straight up. I think he played them, so that way he could talk about the voter fraud in Fulton County, Georgia, because I'd anticipate things are going to ramp up this week about that. They just conducted the search warrant. 700 boxes were taken out of the Fulton County, Georgia, like voting headquarters, the center there, and yeah, I'd imagine we're going to hear some news about that this week. So this is a way to get in the headlines or get the media to talk about the Dominion voting machines and the Taiwanese chip in there and foreign interference. And look, Tulsi Gabbard was on the ground during that search warrant. Anyway, so he was right to respond to this story like this. Over the years, the press has clearly shown that they have a double standard when it comes to situations like these. Now, if a Democrat got caught up in a similar controversy like this, okay, the Democrat would apologize, and the media would praise the Democrat for apologizing and say things like, oh, well, he did the right thing. Okay, if a Democrat had gotten caught up in a controversy like this. Now, if a Republican, and if Donald Trump were to have apologized and said, like, yeah, we're going to fire the staffer, they would not show him grace or anything, okay, or give him credit for showing humility. The Republicans are never given the same treatment. The apology would mean nothing. It would not soften the coverage or the tone or change the tone. Okay. Giving these people what they want, turning into a puddle of tears will not help anybody, because what they're going to do is just continue to repeatedly call you a racist. Even if you were to fire the guy and apologize, the apology is often framed as a form of admission. See, even Donald Trump acknowledged he's racist. Like, it never works out for Republicans when they apologize. They frame it as an admission of guilt when they apologize. And this is proof, hey, in this kind of political environment, never back down. Okay. Backing down never brings a resolution. It only invites more attacks. And Trump treated this very properly. He indicated some level of disapproval of it when, he said, I don't think I'd really like it, but I didn't really see it before they had posted it. The video of the Lion King. He indicated some disapproval of it, but, he didn't give it much attention at all. And that was to the dissatisfaction of the press. They wanted him to turn into a puddle of tears. Of course, we've got the idiot Republicans. Same thing with the Truth Social post. I think that's what Bob Reiner, like right before Venezuela and the kidnapping of Maduro, the indictment and the extradition of Maduro. Right before that, there was that Bob Reiner thing. He had posted about Bob Reiner, about him being woke. And people were like, that's so nasty. Republicans were coming out and saying that Trump was nasty for posting that. And I'm just like, you self-righteous losers. Donald Trump was right in the post. Like, I forget exactly what Rob Reiner, Rob Reiner, the guy in it, that nobody deserves to die at all. I hate when people die, but like, there's consequences. And their son, killed in a very inhumane way, sliced their throats, I believe, his parents' throats. But there's some truth here to say that that's a product of wokeism. That's a consequence of raising your children up in the way he or she should not go. And woke people like Rob Reiner, who was Trump derangement syndrome to the max, that sort of mental illness, that sort of character and hatred and bitterness towards an individual, your kids see that, and it's not healthy. Obviously, there were some issues with this individual, with their son, and some drug issues, and the product of wokeism ultimately ends up in severe consequences. Like, and that was the Truth Social that Trump had put out. He had, like, what was he supposed to do? Not talk about how Rob Reiner absolutely hated his guts? Like, he was supposed to go out and say, like, loved Rob Reiner. That would be bizarre, right? No, Trump, apologize or offered condolences and was sympathetic in the post, but he followed up with like, hey, Trump derangement syndrome has consequences. Anyway, so I think that was the post that sent the media into a frenzy. And then shortly after that frenzy, Donald Trump carried out like this extradition in Venezuela, and nobody knew that was happening in the dead of night. Anyway, Republicans back then were blasting Donald Trump. Okay. And it's just like, why do you guys do that? Like, your self-righteousness, your turning into a puddle of tears and backing down, it just invites more attacks. They just use it. They say, oh, see, he admitted guilt. So some Republicans were no help to President Donald Trump because they're disloyal and idiots. and they weren't at much help. They want to get on camera, and a lot of these Republicans who I'm going to condemn the president, and I'm going to, do this in a bipartisan fashion, and I'm going to condemn him because, yeah, they do it because they want camera time. So Mike Turner of Ohio, he commented on the visuals, the Barack Obama visuals, the ape visual, and he said it's offensive and heartbreaking. Oh God, heartbreaking. Like this. Okay, this video is heartbreaking. I don't know about you guys, but I am just reduced to tears. Wine mom level sobbing, like just sobbing over, this video because it's just so offensive that it breaks my heart. Like, have you not been on the internet, man? Like, I don't know. Like, if you get that offended about something like that, and it wasn't even you, like, okay, Michelle, maybe, Brock, maybe, they're heartbroken by it and deeply offended by it. But Mike Turner of Ohio, like, you are deeply offended by this. Come on now. I think that you are shouldn't be a representative if you're that heartbroken by something so silly on the internet. Anyway, so if you're that heartbroken by something like that, man, you probably need to go see a guidance counselor, social worker of some kind. Maybe you should work for some sort of social equity, diversity think tank, nonprofit organization who can, coddle you back to sleep or whatever. I don't know. Like, what are you doing, man? Okay, he's a United States representative. You're heartbroken by that? Really? God, what weak men we have leading this country. Anyway, Tim Scott, another weak man, came out and said, "Oh, I condemn this." He goes, "I'm praying it's fake because it's one of the most racist things I've seen come out of this White House." Tim, obviously you really wanted some screen time. And NBC reported the condemnation of Tim Scott. I thought this was so funny. NBC, in their coverage of his condemnation of the president for posting this, he says, or the NBC says, Senator Scott is the only black Republican in the upper chamber. Tim Scott, comma, who is black. Like, dude, like they consistently just this identity framing, and like it's racist that they even like why does that matter? It doesn't even matter because Senator Tim Scott's comments are his comments. His race has nothing to do with it, really. NBC's coverage didn't stop at reporting what Senator Tim Scott said. They leaned into this identity framing by stressing that he's the only black Republican in the upper chamber, the U.S. Senate. And, that detail, him being black, has no bearing on the substance of his comments, him being black, yet they treated it like it was important context. And in doing so, what NBC here is trying to do, they're trying to suggest that Republicans are racist and they don't elect black people. That's what they're doing with this by calling him the only black Republican in the upper chamber. Like, they suggest that him being black makes his criticism more significant. Racism is racism, even if you're saying that Donald Trump posting this was somehow racist. And really, it was like a mistake. I think that it was an intentional mistake. He says it was unintentional, Donald Trump, but this was a mistake. But even if like this was racist and he posted this full-blown video. So say he posted that full-blown video and it wasn't part of this, voter election fraud video, and it wasn't a snippet of it. Say it was the full video and Donald Trump posted the AI video. Okay. Tim Scott being black has nothing to do with his criticism of it. Okay, if you think that that's racist, this clip, then it's racist. You being black has nothing. It doesn't make it not racist or more racist. As if his race had somehow made his criticism more significant. NBC, and then they're trying to say by reporting on Tim Scott's race, highlighting his race. What NBC is trying to do implicitly here is they're trying to say that Republicans never elect black people by calling him the only black Republican. That's what they're trying to say, that Republicans are an outlier when it comes to black representation. But then you look at the numbers. There's only like 4 at best senators who are black, okay, Democrats, and then there's one Republican. Like, when you look at those numbers, I mean, the implication falls apart, okay, that, oh, Republicans are racist and they don't elect black people. What? Right? It falls apart. There's only 4 black Democrat senators, and it undercuts the idea that one party holds the high ground and they elect more black people. Okay, that's just it's silly. Caroline Leavitt, now this was interesting. She came out with a statement that didn't really like align with what President Donald Trump had to say with it, but like I didn't see anything wrong with Caroline Leavitt's statement. She said that it was an internet meme, okay, depicting President Donald Trump as the king of the jungle and Democrats as characters from The Lion King, and she's referencing the controversy in her statement. She didn't go into detail about the election video and that this was a mistake, and that it was an unedited portion of a much larger election fraud video. She goes on in the statement. She says to TMZ, "Please stop the fake outrage and report on something today that actually matters to the American public." I think that it was a great statement. But they said, NBC, in their article, they said that people were upset with the White House response. Now, when I say people, NBC did not attribute them. It was an anonymous source who said that they were critical of Caroline Leavitt's response here, and they were frustrated with her response, stating that she dropped the ball with her comments and that she didn't fully have a grasp on the situation, or she didn't initially find it problematic, the video. She just didn't address the mistake part of it. She addressed the controversy part of it, and that this was not a racist video, or at least she didn't find it to be racist, the King of the Jungle video. So, yeah, I mean, anonymous sources have problems with Caroline Leavitt's response to this. BS. Okay. Look, they made this a much bigger fiasco than it needed to be. Okay. And it's clear that this is political desperation. Anything they can find to say Trump racist, Trump bad, they're gonna find it, they're gonna capitalize on it, and they're gonna pounce like a lion on a buffalo, a crippled buffalo in the African savannah. And Trump did the right thing. He didn't pay much attention to this. I would say Caroline Leavitt, she didn't pay much attention to it either. Or she didn't even, mention that it was a mistake of any kind. She just kind of said, like, it's an internet meme that I don't find racist, essentially. It's part of a much larger video. It wasn't just an Obama-focused ape picture that Trump shared out. Okay, so Trump was right. He let it fade over the weekend. Good for him. Like I said, I think it was intentional. I think that they were trying to get us off the Epstein thing. I think that they are working things out at a foreign policy level when it comes to Iran. I think that they're trying to distract us from things that they're working on. And they're trying to, distract the media from things that they're working on at a foreign policy level. They don't want them getting wind of what they're doing. uh, for national security reasons, they don't want it reported, or they wanted, the media to report on the Dominion voting machines and how there's possible foreign interference. So I think it was genius if he is playing 4D chess with this, and if it was intentionally edited in there, because Donald Trump's doing what Donald Trump does. He's whipping the media into a frenzy, and he's working, behind the scenes, which I think is hilarious. Sorry, guys. Need a sip of water. Smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. Subscribe to the channel. We got a few things I got to hit before we go today. So welcome to the Conservative Cat Show. Subscribe to the channel. Do that, please, right now. Tell someone about the Conservative Cat channel. Trying to grow this into a much larger platform. We started this a year ago. We've come so far with your support. Visit patriotpumpenergy.com. Get your bottle of premium fruit workout today. Use promo code ConservativeCat at checkout. This is the fruit punch flavor. Really good stuff. It's got creatine, caffeine, everything you'd need. It's a fantastic supplement. I swear by it. I love it. Try it, don't, but I'm telling you, after a week of use, you'll start to see a difference or feel a difference. Okay, so let's talk about something that sounds small, but it's not. Okay, it sounds small, it sounds silly, but this is an example of why Springfield Democrats shouldn't get your vote, and why they hate rural Illinois. And this is an example of how Springfield Democrats hate rural Illinois. This is House Bill 4459, recently introduced. They call it an open burn oversight bill. Okay. And you've heard the headlines. Democrats say that this is about safety. Republicans say that this is, unfair. It's vague, punitive. And this is the campfire tax. I'm sure that you've seen the Don't Tread on Me flag. It's got the little campfire there. And it says, say no to Illinois Democrats implementing the campfire tax. Now, the Democrats and liberals have been screaming misinformation, that Republicans are spreading misinformation about this bill and what it does. And not really. I mean, as liberals do, they scream misinformation. But really the premise is the same. Like, did Republicans inflate this a little bit? Yeah. But I mean, the premise is still the same. They're going after rural residents. They're trying to regulate open burn fires on their property. And people are upset by that. They don't want to pay fees or fines because they have open burns on their property in these rural areas, these unincorporated areas. Just my folks, they live in an unincorporated area, and in unincorporated areas, like outside of city limits, so usually governed by like county governments or townships. My parents, they're kind of like through the township. Okay. So my brother, what he does, he'll burn like twice a week because he does, landscaping and things like that. Has a landscaping business. He burns twice a week out there, and it would be considered an open burn. So there's a specific statute that defines what an open burn is. Okay, so an open burn is not something that's in a pit. It's more like brush burning, and it's typically large. Okay. Large fire, and it's done out in the open, and there's no like pit or walls. Okay, so this isn't like a campfire tax, I guess, but it still applies to rural residents. It's still a mandate or like some sort of regulation that, rural residents don't want to deal with. They don't want to pull out a permit to do this kind of stuff. And that permit costs $5 per burn. That's expensive. I told you. I got a brother who does this stuff on a regular basis twice a week. That's $10 a week. That's a lot. That adds up. So rural residents aren't happy. House Bill 4459, sponsored by State Representative Amy Murr-Briel. She's a Democrat from Ottawa. The bill's official goal, she says, is to give counties and townships in unincorporated areas the ability to adopt permits. Now, it doesn't mandate these townships or that these counties It doesn't mandate that they do adopt permit rules for open burn fires. Okay. It gives them the ability to adopt it. Now, the like feasibility, I highly doubt. So my parents, they live in Custer Park Township. I highly doubt the township is going to implement permit rules for open burns. Just because a lot of these rural areas, these counties, county governments, these township governments, they got a whole lot going on. And this kind of stuff, like, now I will say this, a lot of these counties and townships, they are struggling as far as they're resource strapped. And the reason for that is because they mandate, county governments to have a DEI staffer on staff or an HR representative or some bullshit like that, right? And it costs them money. So they have to allocate resources to their mandated DEI salaried employee, where they could normally take that money and put it towards snowplows or basic infrastructure, public safety. But they are a little resource strapped. So I do see a potential for county governments, townships actually adopting some sort of permit rule to obtain revenue, because there's edicts that come down from Springfield on these smaller governments, and they have to abide by those edicts, and then abiding by those mandates and edicts from Springfield, like a DEI salaried employee, costs them, and it resource straps them, and they're probably looking for revenue wherever they can. So not to mention the pension obligations. Okay. Government employees, they've got pension obligations, and you probably live in a community where they constantly are asking you via referendum to raise your taxes. It's because they have an exorbitant pension obligation that they can't tackle. And that comes from all kinds of things, like the state taking away their local government distribution fund. This part of the state income taxes should be going to local governments. Part of it does, but not a big chunk of it, because in 2012, you had Governor Pat Quinn take away some of that local government fund, and now they are resource strapped. Some of these smaller county governments or township governments are a little resource strapped because the state takes away their money. Not only do they take away their money, but they mandate they spend money on BS like DEI directors. Okay. So anyway, they could potentially adopt these permit rules because they're desperate for revenue. So basically, what this bill does, it allows those local governments outside of city limits to implement some sort of permitting rules. And the proponents of this bill argue that local fire districts need more control over these fires outside of city limits because of things like droughts, and they need to be ready, and they need some permitting rules here to control these fires, because apparently they've gone out of control, which I don't think so. The sponsor claims that millions have gone out in damages because of these open burn fires. I don't see that happening in our communities where these fire districts are completely strapped and they can't make it out to these open burns, and these open burns get out of control. I think that people who live in rural areas are responsible, and I think that they conduct open burns responsibly. And, it's managed, and there is already ordinances locally. The county can issue no burn days, things like that, via ordinance. So, I know this sounds innocent, but you take a look at this and you look closer at it. The bill's very vague. It's loaded with unintended consequences. And then they are going to impose fees. Okay, this is where they would really make their moneymaker. Fees and penalties when it comes to rural residents burning, and they just want to manage their land properly. They just want to burn some brush, burn down a tree, something like that. The fees and penalties is what they really want. The revenue, that's the revenue making source. Okay, so we're not talking about like, okay, you're burning and you did it without a permit. You didn't pay your $5 for a permit. We're not talking about a $10 fine. We're talking about $100,000. So if I am in a rural area, I get caught with an open burn and somebody pulls up in my driveway and says, hey, do you have a permit for that? And I'm going to say, no, probably because I wasn't aware that I had to get one, because how are you going to make residents aware that they have to get one now? That's a whole nother can of worms, but they're going to charge you $100,000 if you don't have a permit. Now, like I said, that there's ordinances where the county or the township can say like, hey, today's not a good day to burn. And they make residents aware of that on their websites. They'll send out phone calls, sometimes leave voicemails like saying, hey, don't burn today. It's a no burn day. So if it's a no burn day, you don't catch wind that it's a no burn day. Because if it's extremely windy or if the conditions are dry, the government will issue, the local government there, county or township will say, hey, it's a no burn day. And if that's the case and you don't catch wind of it and then you burn anyway and you don't have a permit, it's $500,000, the penalty. Okay. And then, like I said, per burn, you have to obtain a permit every single time you want to burn something. And like I said, most people burn 2-3 times a week out in rural areas. You do the math. Okay. You're spending hundreds, if not thousands per year to follow bureaucracy and bureaucratic paperwork. And it's complete BS. And the premise is the same here. So like they'll say like misinformation. The liberals will say like, oh, how dare the dirty Republicans call this a campfire tax? Okay, it's not really for campfires. It's not really a tax. It's a fee. And it's kind of for open burns and residents. But the premise is still the same. They invented a problem. There is no problem with open burns. Okay, rural residents have been doing this since the beginning of time. People have been setting fires forever. Okay, they invented a problem. They proposed a bill that creates rules, fees, and penalties for ordinary people who don't do anything wrong. And that's BS. So liberals want you to believe that, oh, this is not about campfires. This is about large open burns, and this is about safety. Okay, but like we're arguing that this is about control. This is about imposing fees disproportionately on rural residents for no real reason. And, the media, they'll frame the Democrats as like heroes. They want to stop wildfires. Those dirty Republicans, they want to burn up the land. Anybody paying attention knows that what this is really about. This is about control coming down from Springfield. The county burn bans already happened during droughts, during windy days. The county says, hey, you can't burn. And residents abide by that. They're managing their land just fine. Okay, this is their private property, by the way. Fire districts, they can respond if it gets out of hand, and they do respond if it gets out of hand. Okay, mistakes happen. And I get that, that can cause damage and it can be tough on the fire districts, but hey, why else do the fire districts freaking exist? Okay. Then to like come out to a fire that gets a little out of control. Okay. So Springfield, what they do, they come up with this vague legislation. They threaten these massive fines, and then they pretend that they're protecting people. But really what this is about, it's about bureaucratic power and potential revenue. And last summer we had lots of dry conditions. There were, fires, yes. But like, do we really need to punish somebody to the tune of $500,000 for burning some brush on a windy day? Right? This is just a way for local governments to pretend that they're doing something. And really what they're doing, they're micromanaging rural life. You move out to these places so you don't have to have your garbage can on the left side. You move out to these rural places so you don't have to, abide by or local ordinances and HOAs. That's why you live out there. And, It's just crazy to me. Like, this is what drives ordinary citizens absolutely nuts. Small town families, farmers, landowners, they know what's safe on their property. They know what the hell they're doing. Stop treating them like they're kids. Okay. They don't need Springfield telling them how to burn their brush. Okay. And I don't know how they're going to enforce this thing. Okay. How do you regulate this? Are you going to have patrol, looking around for smoke and fire? Unless the state hires a fleet of fire inspectors to patrol your backyard. I don't know how this works. So rural residents, they're not opposed to safety. They're opposed to being penalized for existing. Okay. The conservative argument here is freedom, common sense, respecting my property rights. Katrina, it just, is burning. Somebody might be thinking, why do you care? Why do we care so much? It just burns, it's just a burn. Who cares if it's somewhat regulated? Look, this is a pattern. That's why I'm so pissed about this. This is a pattern in Illinois politics. They consistently pass these vague laws with these insane penalties under the guise of safety, environment, and concern. It's feminized government. It's gay. Nobody's got a problem with open burns. You're creating a problem under the guise of safety. You're taking people's rights away. Okay. And then the public reacts and we get pissed off and we say, what the hell? I want to be able to burn openly, burn some brush in my backyard. I want to be able to do that without the government charging me $5 a pop. And then the sponsors, once they get all kinds of backlash, then they're like, oh, we didn't mean to do that. They were hoping that you wouldn't know. And then it would just get passed without your knowing. They were hoping to shove this through. Then they get the pushback and the backlash, and then they claim misinformation. Well, that's not actually what the bill does. And then they try to gaslight you into saying oh, well, that's not actually what the bill does. Here's what it does. And then they amend it. And Springfield rules. Here's what they do. They create rules. They see who complains. And if people complain, then they'll amend it slightly and gaslight you into, thinking that you're crazy for being outraged. They'll call Republicans alarmists for pointing out the obvious, hey, this is private property rights. We shouldn't be focused on this. The bill is vague. It imposes excessive fines. There's a potential for abuse here. And the Democrats, they scream misinformation, disinformation, instead of addressing the reality here is that, this isn't about protecting people from fires. This is about expanding government control and creating fees and micromanaging citizens in rural areas because you hate them. That's what this is about. You hate people in rural areas. You created a vague ass law so that way you could abuse government control and power and micromanage the people in these rural areas. So it's government overreach. Rural Americans are under attack in Springfield. Your rights, your property rights, your freedoms, they are constantly being threatened by this poorly drafted legislation all of the time. You have to stay informed. You might think that this is a small bill. It's a rule about burning, but this is a perfect microcosm of a much bigger problem in Illinois. The state focuses on controlling you and micromanaging you rather than addressing our big issues like our pension debt, $145 billion in pension debt, and our budget ballooning from $30 billion to $50 billion. Okay. So the lesson here, freedom matters. Your knowledge matters. Knowledge is power. That's what Hosea tells us in the Bible. Springfield, stay out of our backyards, right? Government, get out of our backyards. Vote red. Yes. Taxation without representation, commie bureaucracy. Yeah. No s'mores for us. Yeah. I mean, God bless America. Burns flag. Yeah. So that's the Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny is actually, there's a viral picture of him burning a flag. He says, God bless America, which wasn't really God bless America. He was saying that all of the Latin American countries like Nicaragua, Cuba, Colombia, that these countries are all America. And God bless that America, his version of America. But then he proceeds to burn the American flag. He also didn't stand up for God bless America during a Yankees game in October. So, yeah, these people hate America. They hate you. Just remember that. And you can't hate these people enough, or you can't be more disappointed with these people enough. And you need to call them out. And you need to make sure you have the knowledge, because knowledge matters. All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Bye-bye. Love you so much. We'll catch you later.